Yo, God, the thing goes grrrr, pop, pop, tap, tap, tap. Skinny kid, pop, pop, and the poop, poop, boom.
Back to the daily grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
What is up, full-time family? Top of the morning to your bitches. Let's get this day started off right. Holy flying flipping flapjacks. I don't think I've ever heard Luke Rockhold going this hard as he went at Kelvin Gastelum, who we know just recently came out and said that Robert Whitaker took the easy road by taking the Luke Rockhold fight, because Kelvin Gastelum was like, I just knocked out a guy that knocked out Luke Rockhold, talking about Michael Bisping. He's like, so I feel like Robert Whitaker's taking the easy fight. And quite a few people were like, yo, pump the brakes. Come on, Kelvin Gastelum. You know, I don't think there's many people that believe Kelvin Gastelum is a tougher fight than Luke Rockhold. I mean, yeah, everyone can point to the Luke Rockhold getting knocked out by Michael Bisping and say, haha, you got knocked out by Bisping, but that does not take away from everything else Luke Rockhold has done. And just because, yes, Kelvin Gastelum did knock out Michael Bisping, that's not how MMA math works. And Luke Rockhold is pointing out a really good fucking fact. He's like, yo, look what I did to Weidman, and look what Weidman did to Gastelum. As we all know that Kelvin Gastelum was kind of manhandled by Chris Weidman when they fought. After Weidman did, of course, I gotta give him his credit, he did almost drop Chris Weidman, but almost doesn't count, especially when the fight plays out the way that it did. Chris Weidman might have scored 8 to 9 takedowns in that fight and kind of made Kelvin Gastelum look like a welterweight, which is where Kelvin Gastelum is coming up from. He was a welterweight, had weight cutting issues, was forced to move up to middleweight because he couldn't get, you know, his shit together. Dana White said, yeah, no, this guy's got to fight at middleweight, and now he's fighting at middleweight, and he has knocked out a lot of, like, you know, he's been on a Legends ass-kicking tour, Kelvin Gastelum. He's been fighting, like, the Vitor Belforts, the Michael Bispings, the older middleweights of the division that are kind of outside of their prime now, but it's still they're legends of the sport. So Kelvin Gastelum is beating experienced guys, but they haven't really been in their prime. Now, when he did fight a top middleweight whom you can say is in their prime, or a prime middleweight, a top middleweight in Chris Weidman, we saw how that fight played out, made him look like a welterweight, as I said. And so that is why Luke Rockhold had to say this. I'm going to say what he had to say, and then I'm going to tell you guys my first immediate reaction, my thoughts whenever I heard this, yo, because I'm telling you, Luke Rockhold is a fucking pimp. All right, damn, I spoiled it. But let's get into what Luke Rockhold had to say. He said, I know I've proven myself. I've accomplished things in this sport whereas little midgets like Kelvin Gastelum haven't. I've destroyed Chris Weidman, which he got destroyed by Weidman. And so it's like, and he shrugged. He said, this kid hasn't beaten really anybody or done anything in this sport, and for him to run his mouth, it's pretty funny. It's laughable. He'll find out real if he continues his effort. He'll find out real if he continues his efforts at 185. I'd slap that kid down real quick. Yo, when I seen the I'll slap that kid down real quick, I immediately like thought of Luke Rockhold in a Gucci mink with his fucking backhand raised over like Kelvin Gastelum with his hands up like, no. I'm telling you, I just got like a fucking instant meme in my head. Like, someone's got to make it out. This is crazy. I've never heard Luke Rockhold sound like this. I'm sure he has in the past, but this is just real smug and real Luke Rockhold like, yo, who is this kid? And this really is interesting because Luke Rockhold has a fucking great point. Like, how is this kid gonna say I'm the easy fight because I got knocked out by Bisping whenever I beat Weidman's ass, who manhandled this kid? Like, if you want to play that game, I can play that game too. Luke Rockhold is a former champion, a former middleweight champion of this division. So when Robert Whitaker takes that fight, he's fighting a former champion who has beat top contenders at middleweight. Robert Whitaker is also a guy that beat top contenders at middleweight. And he might not say this. Robert Whitaker is a very respectful person. He might not say this, but now while I'm thinking about this, Robert Whitaker might not feel like Kelvin Gastelum deserves a title fight. Robert Whitaker is like, yo, I had to fight Brunson, then Jacare, then Romero, now I got the belt. You had to fight like Vitor, then Bisping, and, you know, miss weight a couple times, and you want a title shot? Like, and Robert Whitaker didn't say that, but now that I'm thinking about it like that, like, yeah, Robert Whittaker might not want to give this dude, you know, he had to fucking fight through the fire. He might want to see Kelvin Gastelum fight a top middleweight. And Kelvin Gastelum, both of these guys, Luke Rockhold and Kelvin Gastelum, are just coming off of a one-fight winning streak. Kelvin Gastelum just beat Bisping before losing to Weidman, and Luke Rockhold just beat David Branch, who's actually, some people give him slack for coming over from World Series of Fighting, but David Branch was a two-weight champion over at World Series of Fighting. We've seen Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje. World Series of Fighting does have some top elite guys at the top of their organization. So David Branch was a real win. He was a multiple weight champion at World Series of Fighting, and Luke Rockhold made him tap the strikes in that fight, if you recall. So he's coming off of a win over David Branch, and Kelvin Gastelum's coming over a win over Bisping. And when you talk about who's a tougher fight out of David Branch and Bisping, that's really arguable at this point, because we've seen what's happened to Bisping, losing to George St. Pierre at Madison Square Garden, losing to Kelvin Gastelum. Bisping won the belt kind of in a fluky manner. He knocked out Luke Rockhold. No one expected it. Then he went to defend against Dan Henderson, like the 12th or 13th ranked guy. Then he lost to two former middleweights. So people have always kind of questioned Bisping's championship caliber. And so whenever you're using that argument, like, hey, I beat fucking Bisping, I think Rockhold's got a better point. Like, yeah, but I beat fucking Weidman, dog. So with that being said, it is what it is. I'm glad Luke Rockhold came out and said this, because Kelvin Gastelum, you know, was kind of throwing shade on his and I kind of wasn't even thinking about it like this before Rockhold said. I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, dude, but fucking he smoked Weidman and Weidman smoked you. So how can you even say, yeah, but I beat Bisping and Bisping knocked him out? I mean, of course, Kelvin Gastelum's going to make his claim for the title shot, but I gotta admit, I like the Luke Rockhold versus Whittaker fight. It is what it is. I've said enough on this video. Man, Luke Rockhold made the thing go scrat. Yo, he said, hey, man, I'm not even gonna talk about him saying little midget, but I guarantee you on one of these fucking MMA shows, Ariel Helwani, one of these dudes on the MMA beat is gonna be like, we really gotta look into these fighters. I mean, first they're saying faggot, now they're saying midget. I mean, what's going on with the UFC? Because midget is another word. Like, literally in this article, they like started out the I and the D like it's a curse word. And yeah, little people, I guess you have to call them little people now and stuff. I mean, when we grew up, it was a little bit of a different time, but just the day and age it is, the sensitivity, I'm not going to be expected when we hear some fucking little segment on this. Somebody just pointed out, like, yo, the MMA beat guys just did like a 15-minute, this is what someone said in the comments, like, they just did a 15-minute segment on how bad the UFC is for the Aljamain Sterling, you know, not updating us on what happened after the Aljamain Sterling knockout. One thing I gotta say is, I would have liked an update, but I'm not gonna spend 15 minutes right here. You know, it's already the end of the video and shit. But yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's as big of a deal as it's being made out to be. I would have personally liked an update, as you saw in my next video the next day. I was like, you know, it's good to know this guy's alive. But yeah, I would like an update, but it is what it is, man. This is the UFC. This is the fight business. You know, they're on like Big Fox sometimes. Where was this card at? I think it was Fox Sports 1. I mean, in the NFL and stuff, you do see, you know what? I just said I'm not going to do a fucking 15-minute segment on this, and here I am at like 2, so I'm about to shut the fuck up. I would have liked an update, but it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what the fuck you tell me in the comments. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking D-O-double-G.